Man United are back! They're in the title race! Are they? Maybe. What's happened? What's changed? Has Ten Hag fixed them? Is it Ronaldo being gone? Is it all shiny new players? Or is it the real reason I think it is? This guy, Casemiro, the defensive midfielder who's holding everything together. He's very, very good. Ten Hag has described him as the cement between the stones, which is of course because he is built from a sort of liquid rock and came from a volcano. And he is here to cause avalanches of non-goals against from the opposition. Doesn't matter what I'm saying here. Basically, this guy's amazing. I'm going to show you why he's made all the difference for Man United. And if you like what I say, oh baby, please do subscribe to our channel, Tifo IRL. Help our subscribers go up. That'd be great. Because I can tell you things like how much better United are with Casemiro than without. We can see it just in the numbers here, look. So they've played more games, that's not his fault. But they've won more games, so their win percentage is much higher with Casemiro in the team. But the real thing that's massive is the goals against per 90. So all this stuff is fine, right? But look at this. The goals against per 90 go down from an average of 2 per game to 0.6. That is fairly nuts. So how does Casemiro do this? How does he perform this magic? I think there's two reasons. The first, it's all about positioning and ball recovery to do with his defensive positioning, something that you can probably coach a little bit, but I think is just innate to really talented players. Now, what Casemiro does is fill in the gaps where everyone else goes. That's what Ten Hag means when he says the cement between the stones. And it makes sure that United have defensive cover all over the pitch, not just in defensive areas back in this half, but also when they push forward. When they push forward, what the shape tends to do, you'll have a central forward like Martial through the middle. This is a hypothetical team. Antony wants to come out to go inside. Fernandes wants to be around these sorts of areas here, but actually quite a lot recently he's been coming out to the wide areas. And there's one little reason for that. It's because he gives you different angles of crosses into the box. Antony's obviously going to be a left footer because that's all he's got. And he'll cross in like this, so you get two different angles. Isn't that nice? Also, it allows you to overload this wide area when Dalot or Wan-Bissaka comes forward. Just something that Ten Hag likes to do. Anyway, that's one little interesting bit I thought I'd share with you. Now, the rest of the team will go forward. Rashford will attack the half spaces here. Then you'll get Shaw, my overlap, my underlap. Eriksen's going to come and join the midfield around a bit here, pushing the opposition back a little bit. So your front five will look a little something like, kind of like this. Rashford, Eriksen, Martial, Fernandes, Antony, maybe Shaw overlapping as well. And then obviously what you leave there is loads of spacing behind. You're never going to have a big gap like this because that would be insane, but you can push Casemiro forward. Martinez is going to push forward with Varane to try and give you a big, try and squeeze the defensive line up to try and push the opposition back. What Casemiro will do is fit in to make sure there is always this triangle between Eriksen and Fernandes. Now, the reason this is important is because if there's a turnover, he's going to be in position to read it and block the pass forward. But what you'll always see Casemiro do with his positioning is he knows what's around him all the time. So if the ball does turn over, he's not just dropping back between the defenders. You normally think of a defensive midfielder as being this anchor here, but he just anchors the midfield instead and prevents the pass going into players further forward, like behind him. So if United are on the right side, he'll make sure he's over on the right side to try and help with the overload and prevent any counter-attack starting there. If United push over to the left side, again, same sort of thing. He's always going to be around to make sure he keeps this sort of triangle. I can show you it. I can show you it with pictures to show the importance of what he does and where he does it. Here's an example of Man United against Wolves in the first minute. You can see the triangle here between Eriksen, Fernandes and Casemiro. He's just making sure he's tight to this player. The most obvious next pass for this guy to put the ball into. He can't play that ball, it forces him wide. It's a nice easy thing to do, lots of players can do this. But here he is, same game against Wolves, 4 minutes in, completely other side of the pitch, making sure he's in this overloaded bit here. See 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Wolves players and there's 4 United ones. And that's him just in position to help move the ball on. And then another example from him against Bournemouth, but this time he's much further forward. Now, you think the defensive midfielders has been the anchor that sits next to the centre backs, like we said. But Casemiro reads the game. It's the thing he's best at in his positioning, is reading the game to make sure he's always in the right position to help the team, filling in the gaps. Here he is pushing right forward. The ball has gone from left to right here, and number 32 for Bournemouth is going to drop in, the ball's going to come to him. Casemiro has read this, right? So rather than dropping back, if he drops back into position behind the midfield, you're going to have this massive like gap in the middle that is a potential counter-attack through the middle. So he just runs into the middle of the pitch to make sure there's not an easy avenue to get out. And as the ball drops, he then reads that that's likely to go this way. So either it's going to get hooked over this area here, that's fine, or it'll go into this player next to him, Philip Billing. So Casemiro waits, reads the play, sees his body language, he knows it's a pass, he steps in, wins the ball, and that's United back in possession. So that's the thing. Now this defensive positioning is key, the aggressiveness, like going into it, reading the play, that's really something that's very hard to coach. He just knows exactly what to do and when. But the next best thing he does, and what makes him so special, is that the first pass he makes is almost always forward, and usually it's one touch as well. Now that is important because what United used to have was Fred and McTominay, who would go sideways like crabs. This is what they used to do. This is what their passing generally looked like in the 21-22 season. You can see mostly sideways. Casemiro goes forward every single time, and his range of passing is excellent as well. Paul Scholes has talked about this, how surprised he was about how good his passing is. And we see that in games where Casemiro, if you watch him, he'll always be in the right position, but he creates little rondos in parts of the pitch, so he squeezes teams up, and then he just starts playing one-touch passes, moves the ball on, always to someone in space, so the ball keeps moving forward. And that has a real knock-on effect to United's goals against, you see. So like the goals against, it's not just because he's in defending mode and making big tackles, which he does, but it's because he's stopping things way up the pitch to prevent teams being able to get at them earlier. Like, remember the example from against Wolves where he pushes over here? Now, I think, were this to be McTominay or Fred, what would happen is he would take it, the ball comes flying in from Martial here, it's really difficult. He takes a touch on his chest, it's such a difficult ball to control, then he takes the ball down. What McTominay or Fred would do is take another touch, turn inside, because that's the safest thing to do, pass into Eriksen, and if you do that, this team can push up. Now what I mean by this, right, is different players do different things, different situations. That's why some are worth loads of money and some are not. Now, Casemiro is here. If this were to be McTominay or Fred, for example, I think it would be very different. Martial clears the ball, like in the picture. Casemiro takes it down, lovely touch on the chest. And what you get now, if it were McTominay or Fred, I think, is that they would take the ball down, they'd have a look, then they'd see the safest option is Eriksen and push the ball wide here. That then means that the opposition team who are trying to get out can start pushing up because the ball's going sideways. And once that happens, obviously it pushes your team back. And what you might get is that team, well, this player has to then either go backwards or you can try and rush a pass into forwards and then it gets intercepted and there's a turnover and then you get counter-attack. This is the reason that United now are able to stop conceding so many goals, is that they're stopping the ball earlier. So what Casemiro does, instead of what McTominay or Fred would do, which is sideways, is he receives the ball on the chest and he already knows that Antony is in this position here, takes the ball down, his next touch, ball goes down, the first touch, bang, fires it through the lines, Antony then spins, turns and threads it through for Fernandes, who almost gets a shot away. That is the difference. So whether going sideways and encouraging the team to push up, to push you back towards your own goal, Casemiro wins it, they've been in the right place at the right time, then makes a pass forward and they get a shot at goal. You can see it a little bit better if I show you on this picture, like here he is. You see, that's a difficult pass to make, this guy's stepping over, but Casemiro makes the pass. Fires it into Antony, turns around, threads it through. That is the difference. There's a shot on goal for Man United. That's really good. Here he is against Nottingham Forest. This is a real good one, a really good example. Right, here he is, right? Sitting back, anchoring it. The cement between the stones. He's making sure that there's a good gap so when Nottingham Forest break out, they still have to get past him. Just in position, putting players off. It's really important that having players in the right position. A lot of people don't do this in five-a-side. I guarantee this guy wins every five-a-side game he plays on the training pitch. Because he's in the right place at the right time, keeping the shape. It's really important. You've got to do that. Now, here he is watching. He's just watching the play come out. The most likely pass in this situation is quite obviously to this guy here. So they're breaking out, right? Problem is like trying to show him wide. Can't rely on that. And so the ball cuts inside. Casemiro's already read it, snaps in, and it's another thing. It's about anticipation, positioning, and timing. He snaps in to win the ball, and then he goes forward, drives forward with the ball, goes past the player because he's got the right timing, so he's going against the flow of the game, threads a pass through, and then I think Fred comes in from the left to score. That's a shot and goal. That's an interception. That started with him being in this deep position here and ends in a goal. That's what you get from a player like Casemiro versus someone like McTominay or Fred. And then here's an example of everything he does brilliantly. Here's Casemiro here. The ball turned over, right? Everton have the ball here. This is Alex Iwobi who's going to win the ball. So you can see here that there's a big bit of a gap here for Man United. This is not a good shape. This is early in the Ten Hag kind of era, so everything's not quite, squeezed in the way you want it to be. Big gap between the midfield. Casemiro's just reading the play, trying to work out what's going on. The obvious place to attack for Everton is through this middle bit here. Now Casemiro drops deeper next to Eriksen to squeeze in this pitch up here as Everton come along, and he waits for Iwobi, who's going to get the ball and dribble towards him. Waits for him to come, steps in exactly the right time, and a really bad decision by Iwobi, but brilliant timing and interception and tackling from Casemiro, who then takes one touch, fires the ball through the lines, and that is United through on goal to get in for a shot, which they then score. That is the thing that Casemiro does. He's absolutely brilliant. He does everything that they've needed for a long time. And it's not just that he sits back and defends, he goes forward and defends and squeezes everything together to make Man United much better, to stop teams getting in at him, which is why they have stopped conceding so many goals, as you can see there. So that's Casemiro. He's very good. Man United might be good again. They also have quite an easy run of fixtures coming up, you'd think, on paper. But paper doesn't win games. Casemiro wins games.
If you like this video, please consider subscribing to the channel. The Athletic is home to some of the world's best sports journalists, including David Ornstein, Daniel Taylor, Ollie Kay, Amy Lawrence and Rafa Honigstein. There are journalists dedicated to each Premier League team, so every fan gets the coverage they deserve, not just the big clubs. And you can try it for free now for 30 days. See the link in the description.